Observe. As I told you, the versatile nature of carbon basically it is having four properties. The four properties is very important. Even so many times they will ask the question, what is the versatile properties of carbon, nature of carbon, and write it. The first property, as we studied, tetravalency of carbon. So it will form always how many bonds? How many bonds? Four bonds always. So that is what it is unique nature. It can react with so many elements like oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, and halogens and form strong covalent bonds. Now, the second one, the carbon has a unique ability to form bonds with other atoms of carbon, giving rise to large molecules. So that property is only called as, what property is to called as? Everybody.
Catenation.
Catenation. Also we can say self-combination means carbon itself can combine with the other carbon. That is what the first sentence you can see. Form bonds with the other atoms of carbon and gives rise to large molecules. That large molecules is what? A carbon it will combine with like a straight chain compounds or maybe branched chain compounds or maybe ring-like compounds, everything they can, and they will form a large number of big molecules. That property is only called as catenation. Now, if we take here, this one, it will form multiple bonds, and these compounds may have long chains of carbon. They may be branched chains of carbon or even carbon atoms arranged in the rings also and long chains also. So that is what you have to remember. And this middle thing I will explain it. Now coming to here, after this one, here we will be having the property. So this is what you should read, and I will highlight it. You can see no other element exhibits the property of catenation to the extent seen in carbon compounds. That is what the degree of catenation we can say means degree of forming the long bonds, long chains is only happening in carbon. So if you take any other thing, the degree of catenation is not shown that much like carbon. So like silicon forms compounds with hydrogen which have chains up to how many guys? Only 7 or 8 atoms. After these compounds are but very unstable in nature. That is what very reactive. So they cannot be existed more than 7 or 8 atoms. That is why the bond formed by the other elements like silicon, phosphorus or sulfur, of course they also will show the catenation some extent, but not like carbon. So that is what you have to remember. And the carbon bond is very strong and they are stable in nature. That is why it is having a capacity to form large number of compounds with many carbon atoms linked each other. So that is what I understand everybody. So they will ask you in exam even silicon can form compounds up to how much? That is what I am showing you here. How it will be mentioned. How see it is in between the text somewhere in the middle. So it can form up to, that is also silicon with hydrogen. How many bonds? Up to it will be 7 or 8 atoms. After that, they will become weak and they are unstable in nature. Means very reactive in nature. So that they will be disappear again back. Do you all understand? Please respond. So that is the second property of carbon. Now coming to the third property, which is very well known for us, that is what? Tendency to form multiple bonds. So carbon will form multiple bonds itself. That is the property, tendency to form multiple bonds. Please write it. Third property of versatile nature of carbon. So means in the sense of carbon itself, it can form single bond compounds, or a carbon it will form double bond compounds. A carbon itself it can form triple bond itself. So like that itself it can form multiple bonds with other carbon atoms and with other non-metals. With other carbon atoms and only non-metals or metals it will react. Only with the other non-metals. So is there any metal react with the carbon? Anyone? Is there any metal which will react with the carbon? No, because it is only by sharing. So it will react with the other carbon atoms and only with the other non-metals. So it will form multiple bonds like, as we all know, can anybody tell me 3 types of bonds one by one? What are the bonds you know? Single bond,
Double bond.
next one,
Double bond.
and the next one is
Triple bond.
So all these bonds formed by the carbon by itself it can form. So that is why it is the property of carbon, one of the versatile nature of carbon. So it will take single bond. So carbon can form like this. You can draw the structure so that it will be very useful. Next, double bond. It can form the structure like this. So double bond and triple bond, it can form the structure like this. So that is what it will form, triple bond. And also I told you, it is with the carbon atoms, with other non-metals. Can anybody tell me with oxygen, for example? If I take carbon with oxygen, how it will form? Anybody? Carbon, oxygen, double bond. Anybody can tell? Carbon oxygen double bond, because it can form itself and with the other non-metals also. So can you tell me what is the double bond of carbon? Oxygen, because 2 electrons are there, so 2 sharing. Nitrogen, anybody? Triple bond. Carbon, nitrogen, triple bond. Anyone? Nitrogen, how many electrons is needed? 3. So like this, triple bond will form. If you want carbon hydrogen, single bond. Carbon hydrogen, single bond, like this will form. So one of the smallest possible hydrocarbon which we'll study. So this is the property, having a capacity to form multiple bonds. It can form single bond, it can form double bond, it can form triple bond with itself, like means with other carbon atoms or with the other non-metals. So that is what we used to call as is a versatile, carbon is a versatile nature in a normal. So now in these things, observe always there is the existence of saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbons. If they are having only single bond, why means it is also mentioned in clearly in NCERT. So that is what I am saying. So it will form only basically a single bond. Then we used to say them as saturated carbons. Saturated, and double bond and triple bond we used to call it as what, guys?
Unsaturated.
Unsaturated. That is what very important. So everybody should know that always carbon will form which are linked by only single bonds between the carbon atom and another carbon atom. They are called as what, guys? Saturated compounds. What we used to call? Saturated compounds. And if it is linked by double or triple bond between their carbon atoms, they are called as unsaturated compounds. Again, I am saying between carbon and carbon or carbon and other element. Anyone? Carbon and carbon or carbon and other element? Very important. Carbon and carbon. Understand, Elmokil, why I am saying the 7th question which came in our sample paper. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
That is the reason I am saying. Everybody remember, only between carbon and carbon must have double bond, must have triple bond if you are calling as a saturated compound, sorry, unsaturated compound. If it is having all the carbon between single bond is there, then that is called as saturated compound. Between carbon and carbon, please remember that. So that is called as saturated and unsaturated. So this is what a third property, tendency to form multiple bonds. Hope everybody understand. Any doubt? Yes. So why a carbon is forming very strong bond? Why can't other like silicons and all? So what is the reason I said? The strong bonds of carbon because of only one reason. What is the reason, guys? Nobody? That is what is needed. What is reason? Here it is their answer. Why they can form the very strong bonds, not like other non-metals? Because of these. They are in very
Smaller size.
understanding that they are in smaller in size, so that the nucleus is very closer. Nucleus of the each carbon, the nucleus hold to the shared pair of electrons very strongly. That is why the bonds formed by the elements having very smaller in size, they are very strong compared to the atoms having bigger in size, they are weaker. Please remember that, all of you. If the atom size is bigger, then electrons are very far away from the nucleus, so that the nucleus cannot hold the electrons very strongly. As it is, carbon is extremely small in size. They are smaller in size. The nucleus can hold the valence electrons very strongly. That is why the covalent bonds, even basically covalent bond is weaker, but the bonds formed by the carbon is very strong because of the reason carbon is its small size. The strong bonds by carbon because of its small size. So that because of this small size, that enables the nucleus to hold on to the shared pair of electrons very strongly. That is why the very strong making these compounds, especially understanding a stable in nature, not like other non-metals and other compounds. Again, I'm saying the bonds that carbon forms with most other elements are very strong, because that is the reason why they are very small, and this nucleus will hold the electrons, shared pair of electrons very strongly. That is why the compounds exceptionally very stable, which is formed by carbon. Other elements does not have this one. So you have to remember the bonds formed by the elements having bigger atoms are much weaker compared to the compounds which is formed by the smaller elements. Are you clear, everybody? So carbon, it is very popular because of it can react with so many other elements like oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, chlorine, many other elements, giving to compounds with specific properties which depends on the elements and other carbon present in the molecule. So that is why all the compounds formed by the carbon, they are very stable in nature, because it can form 4 bonds, it can form catenation, it can form multiple bonds, and last property is versatile nature, is isomerism. So you might be heard about this word. Have you heard about isomerism? Isomers, you might be here. Yes, guys? All of you? No or don't know?
Yes,
Have you heard about isomerism?
yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what do you mean by isomerism? Means, remember, as we know, what is the valency of a carbon? What valency it is? What valency? Tetravalency. Understand? So even it is not tetravalency, tetracovalency, because it is covalent bond. So tetracovalency of carbon, all of you remember, what do you mean by isomerism? Means same chemical formula but different structure. That is what we used to call as isomerism. What is isomerism? Same chemical formula but different structure. That property of carbon is so to any extent. That is why it is also a become a versatile, make the carbon always unique from other compounds. That is what it is. So due to tetracovalency of carbon, right, there occurs property of formation. There occurs probability of formation of different compounds having different structures and properties which can be represented by the same chemical formula. Have you all understand, everybody? Same chemical formula. That is what means different structure, different physical properties, different chemical properties. But the thing is, the chemical formula is same. So that one is called as isomerism. Having different structures but the same chemical formula is known as isomerism. That is why the carbon is one of the unique element because of these properties, which is never shown by any other element. And carbon and its compounds only it will show this. Have you understand, everyone? Please respond. Yes. So these are the properties called as versatile nature of carbon. If they will ask you number of carbon compounds, you can see the discovered by chemists till date is about almost 3 millions. 3 million compounds has been discovered. So it is only possible because of these 4 properties. What is the 4 properties, guys? All of you? Yes, please. Nobody? What is
Tetravalent.
tetracovalency of carbon? That is what tetravalent. The second one is catenation. Tendency to form multiple bonds. And the last one is isomerism. Isomerism means same chemical formula, but what it is? Different structure
and different properties.
Yes, different properties. That is what we used to call as isomerism. So we'll study that what is isomerism and all. So this is what is carbon, introduction of carbon and versatile nature of carbon. Then tomorrow's class will study what is the occurrence of carbon and as well as allotropes of carbon. After that, directly we'll go to the compounds of carbon. That is what saturated and unsaturated carbon compounds. We'll study one by one. That is what all the products of carbon, like what is the compounds it will form, different compounds, and everything we'll discuss it. Okay. So till here, please, all of you, versatile nature is very, very important. So many times they will ask you for 2 marks. So I'll once again revise that. And what I taught you in the last chapter, metals and non-metals. Double bond, triple bond, and single bond. Hydrogen, hydrogen, single bond. Oxygen, oxygen, double bond, and nitrogen, nitrogen, triple bond. I have taught you. Do you remember that? Examples of double bond, single bond.
Yes, sir.
Revise that once. If you revise that only, then we can see, we can go with the remaining properties which is there in our book only. So we'll follow the book strictly according to our book. So we'll carry on and we'll make it. So please, all of you, read very carefully, and whatever it is there, we'll continue and we'll continue from the tomorrow's class. So tomorrow we'll study what is the general properties of covalent compounds also as it is given. So after that, we'll move into the next concepts. So thank you, everybody. With this, I'll stop. Carry on from here and we'll continue tomorrow's class.